Hey everybody, my name is Nathan and I am the Survivor Buff. I am here to talk about episodes 1 and 2 of Survivor 50. I have a lot of thoughts about them. I was sick last week, so I wasn't able to make a video then. I'm still sick this week, but I'm going to push through because I have had too many thoughts to be able to let it go by the wayside for another week. The first 2 episodes of Survivor 50 are off to a fantastic start, and I'm very excited to see where the rest of the season goes. I really enjoyed the special opening they had for Survivor 50. I definitely was crying for the first 10 to 15 minutes of the episode. The first episode of Survivor I ever saw was the finale of Survivor Caramoan, where I watched Cochran take home the win. I didn't even start with Survivor. I started with Total Drama, which I watched from the first season back in 2007, and that's that animated parody on Cartoon Network of Survivor. If you want to know how big of a fan I was playing in Total Drama online reality games before I even knew what Survivor was. So I was really deep in the streets of Total Drama. I think during the opening, Survivor did a great job of summarizing how truly big Survivor was. There were a couple shots that surprised me a little bit, like Lisi. I was not expecting to see Lisi make an appearance in this Survivor 50 premiere, but I guess it's good that they are willing to pull from some more obscure contestants. I think it was good that they included the "she died dude" moment because of how massive of a moment that was. I would say it was like start of the show, Colby, and then dead grandma, Stephanie, right? Those are like the first 4 massive moments. I mean, besides Rob and Amber, of course. There were a lot of stuff happening in that first 10 seasons. In the Hands of the Fans is an awful subtitle for the season, but I'm glad that they're willing to name seasons again, because I think themes add a lot to a Survivor season, even if it's just giving people a category to play within. Like heroes versus villains. Villains feel a lot more okay playing the game in a more nefarious way because they are labeled as villains already, you know? So I think more themes like that, champions versus contenders from Australian Survivor, brain, brawn, beauty, something like that, even just simple things for people to identify with so that they feel like they can start moving their game forward, I think would be good. And also keeps it more interesting for the fans. Oh, before I get too far into this, I want to say that I am a massive listener of Rob Has a Podcast, and some of my takes, I'm sure, are conflated from stuff that I've heard in their podcast. So I'm not trying to steal any takes from them or anything. I just wanted to throw that out there because they really are like the only Survivor podcast I listen to. So I'm glad that the episode, despite Jenna being the first boot, still made sure to give her a lot of respect and to not just make her some like kooky lady from season 1. They actually like showed people that she was a massive deal at the time and that she was on like the cover of magazines and everything. It's crazy. Even like the second boot from Borneo was in an Adidas commercial. Like it was very, very large. BB Anderson. I just looked it up. He did commercials for Reebok and Home Depot, not Adidas. Then we get to the opening mat chat, which is one of the best parts of the episode. I was also crying for many parts of this. I watched this episode like 3 times now. I noticed there were some weird, seemingly specific snake sound effects. The first one came up when Mike was shown in a frame. Then there was a snake sound effect when Sari, Joe, and Chrissy popped up, but that was quieter, which was kind of strange to me that it was quieter. But it could be in reference to Jeff saying, "You all have no idea what you're going to encounter," because it kind of plays at the end of that. Then it happens after Camilla, but that's after Jeff says the word terrifying. So I think that might be more in reference to that than the fact that Camilla's a snake. And then it happens over Colby, but Colby also sticks his tongue out in the same shot. So I think that they're just having fun with that one. I think, though, my favorite shot of the entire Survivor 50 premiere is when Charlie is listening to Jeff talking, and Jeff goes, "This is it, you are it," and Charlie's face goes from, like, smiling, jovial, like, happy to be there, to, like, oh, no, I know why I'm here. Like, I am here to play the game, I'm here to win, and I love that from him because I know that so many of the other players share that same feeling with him. It was also kind of funny that Ozzy was tearing up at Jeff's speech. Alright, this is the first part of the episode where I think a contestant made a misstep. Jeff basically asks Mike White why he's out there on Survivor, and Mike says that he would get FOMO, and that he didn't want to hear it from Angelina and Christian in a month. That is a crazy thing to say on the first day of Survivor, on the first mat chat of the season. Like, yes, most people are going to assume, most if not all people are going to assume that they're close because of the White Lotus, but taking out all doubt on day 1, I think is a big misstep, because now I know that the mat chats are long, so a lot of stuff's said and people don't remember everything, but now people can go back to camp and say, did you hear what Mike said? But before Mike said that, it would be kind of weird for someone to bring that up, you know? But because Mike said that, it almost puts it out into the ethos of the game that this is something that exists. And that's very dangerous for Mike, Christian, and Angelina. And then we get to this moment where it's Rick talking about how he voted for no idols because he doesn't want anything to do with idols. And on the first watch, I thought this was a misstep for Rick because nobody really bought it. They were all just kind of like, aha, yeah, there's probably one under his feet right now. And I thought that was a bad thing because they were kind of like scoffing at him. I think it's good because it sets up the fact that Rick is known for finding idols. I'm also going to be talking about the edit a decent amount in this video. I've been watching Survivor for so long now that it's kind of hard to not take the edit into account while watching stuff live for the first time. The first season I watched live was Blood vs. Water, so I have almost watched half of Survivor's lifetime live. Almost. But anyways, I thought that moment with Rick was bad because going into episode 1, I think I was taking it more seriously than the contestants were, and I was looking for any kind of misstep that people could have on the first seconds of the mat. But I don't think the contestants or the show was taking it that seriously, so I think I need to rethink how I'm looking at it a little bit. It made Rick seem more comical, and it establishes that he's good at finding idols, which, as we see in episode 2, is important for later. Okay, this is one of the parts where I'm going to reference RHAP. Jeff says that the first vote for no rice was 53 to 47%. Then he says the decision for tribe supplies is, quote, almost exactly the same at 60 to 40%. That is not almost exactly the same. And Rob Cesternino brought this up on RHAP, saying, like, Jeff said it was close, and I don't know how close, not really that close. And his co-hosts were like, oh, well, I mean, it's a little bit close. I mean, I could see where he's coming from. But I'm on Rob's side because he didn't say it was close. Jeff said it was almost exactly the same. That is not. 7 percentage points of difference is not almost exactly the same. Just saying. I thought it was funny. Also, when Coach's demeanor dropped so quickly when Ozzy was picked, he went from being like, oh man, they're choosing me. Let's go. I'm either gonna be the hero or the GOAT, you know. And then the other tribe's like, oh, I guess. I mean, it's only fair we send Ozzy. And then Coach is like, oh, wow. It was very, very quick switch up. And also, Rizzo freaking out, being like, South Pacific, here we go. That's me if I was on 50. So I see a lot of myself in Rizzo. Next, we get to Vatu Camp. One of the funniest parts of the episode was when Colby is saying Rizzo is annoying as hell. And honestly, this is the edit that I would have expected Rizzo to get if he wasn't on season 50. I feel like Rizzo on 49 kind of played a game deserving of this kind of edit where he's like kind of annoying some people and kind of like endearing to some people. But because he was on Survivor 50, they couldn't show many of his faults because they had to justify him being on 50. So I think now we're getting more of the other side of like, no, he's a little annoying, but he's lovable. Everyone likes him eventually, but he's kind of annoying and lazy. This moment between Colby and Rizzo is also the start of a main theme, I believe, of the season, which is different styles of play depending on who you are. I'll come back to more of that later. Then we head over to the Kahlo camp. Dee mentions in her confessional that she like talks about the tribe, and she mentions that she's going to play more cutthroat than last time. I don't think that's a bad thing for Dee. I always find it interesting though when contestants in like the first episode or two, they never mention something about winning or something about like proving themselves. She just kind of said she was going to be more cutthroat, which doesn't really tell me a ton. I thought it was funny when Charlie was like, we got Jonathan, like we don't have to go to tribal for a long time, because you know that preseason everybody at Ponderosa, everybody was just praying that Jonathan would be on their tribe. Also, another great part of the episode, why does Mike White have a six-pack? That's incredible. I thought it was funny when he was like, I've been waiting for this moment for months. Over on the Sela camp, we got Joe going over everybody on the tribe. He's really complimentary of everybody, but secondhand visibility is very important in a Survivor edit. Secondhand visibility is something that can be positive or negative, but always comes from another person. So it's always people talking about someone. In this scene, Joe calls people brilliant, and he says not just smart, brilliant, and he's talking about Emily and Christian, and he specifically says to Christian, or about Christian, he's the man. I don't know, I feel like that says a lot about what the editors want us to think about Emily and Christian. And then he goes, this part I found very interesting. He goes, and then there's Rick Devens. And then like a slight pause where Rick falls like out of a tree or like off bamboo or whatever. And then he says, I love him. But it seemed like he was about to say something negative because he was like, and then there's Rick Devens. Like, he's not brilliant. But no, he was saying something else about how he loves him. And this is the start of something. It might be in my head because I was looking for it, but preseason, so many people talked so much crap about Rick Devens, like other contestants. They thought he was doing too much. They thought he was too smiley. If you're smiley with everybody, you're smiley with no one, like that kind of thing. So at the start of episode 1, I was almost looking for confirmation, either positive or negative, that Rick Devens was going to either completely flop or do well in the season. I'm a big Rick Devens fan, if you can't tell. So I was looking out for that kind of stuff. This moment was the first one where I was like, are they doing this on purpose? Where they like make you think that something bad is about to be said about Rick, and then it's actually a good thing? Because it kind of struck me that way, and it was pretty effective editing. And then we get Savannah telling her tribe that she won her season. I think this is a really good thing for her to do. Not entirely sure that she did it the best way, where she was like, guess how I did. But, I mean, it's kind of an awkward thing to bring up, so I can let it slide. I think this was good for Savannah, but this also sets up why she ends up going home in episode 2. And then we get Jenna, talking about how she's worried about Cerie's story on day 1. Why are we worried about story on day 1? We should not be thinking about any of that. Just get through the first immunity challenge and then we'll talk. Next up, the best part of the episode, fight for supplies. It's interesting. Coach and Ozzy, I got a lot to say about Coach and Ozzy. They claim that going into this season that they are willing to bury the hatchet and move forward with things. I don't think that's true from either of them. In the show, before they even meet on the beach, I don't know when the confessional was taken, but before they meet on the beach, Coach already calls Ozzy his nemesis. I don't know if a nemesis is someone that you're trying to bury the hatchet with, just saying. Despite that, I was actually pretty impressed with the initial conversation between Coach and Ozzy. I thought it was pretty mature, and Coach was taking accountability for not being as humble as he should be. Ozzy was taking a little accountability for poisoning the jury a little bit. I thought it was kind of lame that Sophie caught a stray when Ozzy was like, no, I truly believe you should have won that season. That was a little lame, but whatever. It's just Ozzy's opinion. And then we get a confessional from Ozzy that I think is so telling. He says he wants to work with Coach so things don't go the way they have before, and he wants whoever wins to win in a fair and just way. Right there, I think that tells us all we need to know between the difference between Coach and Ozzy. Coach and Ozzy clash because they both present the same principles of honor and integrity, and they both act like those are super important parts of their being. The difference is, Coach acts honorable, but will play cutthroat and not admit it, not own up to it, and that's literally why he lost South Pacific. Ozzy acts honorable and actually wants to bring the people he sees as most honorable or the strongest to the end. Emphasis on people that he sees as the most honorable, aka people like him. Ozzy has shown us in the past that even if he loses, he'd rather lose to the better player, for example, Yul. And that's why they clash, because Coach is always going to present that way and then do things in his best interest, whereas Ozzy presents honor, but he actually wants to go through with honor because he has such a good chance at winning at the end in that scenario, you know? Another thing that stuck out to me during this part was Ozzy going, oh, my back. Even Ozzy gets old? What do you mean Ozzy gets old? Now we get to the best part of the episode, when Coach steals the key from Ozzy. My opinion on this, Coach has every right, of course, to take the key, to do his Survivor thing, to get his hero moment. He has every right to do that if he so chooses. I do, however, kind of understand why Ozzy's a little bit upset about it. It took them 35 minutes to get the key, over 35 minutes according to Q. And later in episode 2, he says, like, you'd still be there trying to get that key if I didn't get it for us, basically. It taking so long and them working so hard for it, I think, is what prompts Ozzy to say, if you get it, I promise I'm not going to take it from you. I don't think he would have said that if they were only going at it for 5 to 10 minutes, you know? And of course, Coach stays silent. He's like, no, I didn't say any of that. And then as Ozzy unhooks it, Coach starts to go for it, and Ozzy says just like, oh man, please let me have it. And you can like hear the desperation in his voice. At that moment is when I was like, oh man, maybe this really is a mistake for Coach. Like, you guys just had a nice moment of building trust and you immediately throw it in his face, like immediately, because he wanted the hero moment back at camp, essentially. I just don't think, like, yeah, he's well connected in his tribe now, but I think that would have happened even if he lost. So basically, he just has an active enemy 2 hours into the game for essentially no reason. I don't know if I could see that as a positive thing, but of course, it's positive for our viewing entertainment. But I'm going to stop myself right there, because none of that where Coach was going to give it up, that was never going to happen, because Coach is Coach, and Coach is going to coach. I believe that what separates good Survivor players from bad ones is the ability to override your initial instincts and emotions on some things for the betterment of your game. However, Coach and Ozzy are not good Survivor players, so no matter what, they will revert to their natural selves. I think this is even more proven this season, because in the preseason, Ozzy specifically was like, no, I can't keep playing the same game I was before. This time I'm playing as Oscar. And Coach in the preseason was saying that this is the first time that he actually believes he can win. I don't know if I buy that for South Pacific. I guess I buy it for the other two, maybe. But no matter what they said preseason about what they were going to change, the second they got into the game, they reverted back to their own Survivor selves, because Survivor breaks you down to who you are at the core. And at the core, that's who those people are. And this is why Coach and Ozzy make such compelling characters, why they make such amazing TV, and why we love them. Also, just me personally, I think I wouldn't have been annoyed about Coach taking the key until they got to the Exile Island plank. Coach was like, and read the next part with the two of you in secret. Oh, hey-oh. And he was like, oh, that's fun. And the other two just looked like they wanted to punch him in the face. Oh my God. It was so good. That would have gotten me a little salty though, I think. Speaking of which, Exile Island's back. That's awesome. It's been a while since we've seen it. I honestly forget what the last time we saw it was. I just looked it up, and the last time we had Exile Island was Roxroy breaking the hourglass in Survivor 42. So it's been a minute. Also, what do you think Ozzy and Q talked about for an entire night on Exile? This is why Survivor needs live feeds. Not really, that'd be awful. Over on the Kahlo Beach, we see Coach get his hero moment. Next, we get Coach's toe ring. That thing is nasty. 1988? That's a long time. And Charlie puts it on. Charlie put it on. There was a time in my life when I would have put on the toe ring if I was on Survivor. I'm not sure I'm that guy anymore. Also at this camp, we get the start of Chrissy coming on too strong. She says she wants to be diabolical and laugh while she does it. Similar with Dee, doesn't say anything about winning or changing how she used to play. Not a great sign for Chrissy moving forward. Christian calls Rick an idle hound, which I think is more set up for Rick doing more fun things with idols this season. So, my first episode of Survivor ever was the finale of Caramoan that I caught live, and I watched Cochran win. So I've always had a soft spot for the nerds of Survivor. So this scene between Rick and Christian really solidified things for me. I really thought Rick was screwed going into this season because of how everybody was talking about him in the preseason. And like I was saying earlier about the editors knowing that, there was that moment where Rick's talking about wanting to work with Christian, and he's like, I feel like I'm writing a note like, do you want to work with me? Check yes and check no. But it was so good because during that confessional, they cut to Christian almost as if he was like hearing Rick say that, even though he clearly wasn't. And then Christian just like looks puzzled for a second, and that's the moment where I was like, oh no, here it comes. He's gonna say like, I like Rick, but he's not really giving me the same vibes as I thought. And I was like, oh no, here it comes. But then he goes, I love Rick Devens. Who doesn't love Rick Devens? And I was like, it's happening. Oh my God, Rick's not going home early. Oh my gosh. So that was a good feeling for me in the premiere. And then when they were walking down the path, and then Christian goes, do you notice how awesome you are, by the way? Oh my God. There's not many nerd manses on Survivor, so it's nice to see them when they're here. I'm just going to say now, my winner pick for the season is between two people, and it's Christian and Cirie. And this scene is a big reason I think it might be Christian. All the times nerdy things have been talked about on Survivor, and how they're portrayed. Maybe some Dodo music, maybe, like Brando talking about Pokemon. Like, there's been some nerdy scenes. And it's portrayed positively, and not like they're nerds. Like, The ethos of this season is in good hands, and I'm very excited to see where it goes. This season has already made me think a lot more about how Survivor seasons are portrayed in the first place. And as much as I hate Survivor 48, it honestly taught me a lot about that kind of thing. Because during 48, for the entire season basically, I was confused as to why the edit was giving so much credibility to the honor integrity style of playing Survivor. And I realize now it's because those players go on to win that season. Like, not win necessarily, because Kyle and Camilla make it to the end, but Joe and his principals run that season. And they talk about that in episode 2 of this season. So the fact that this Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock alliance isn't portrayed as just like this doofy, nerdy thing makes me think that the nerds might have some credibility in this season, and we need to take them seriously. Here we get a confessional from Emily saying she wants to give herself credit, but thinks it's a little too early to take full victory. I think that's a great setup line because she's close with Rick and Christian. It shows that she's going to do well and she's going to get stuff done this season. Basically that this isn't her full potential, but I don't think she's going to be the winner. Back at the Vaatu camp, Kyle starts making connections, and he is so good at making connections, it annoys me even more that he got himself medevac. Colby then tells Genevieve that his left ear is bad and his eyesight sucks. Colby can get old too? I hate it here. Genevieve has this confessional about like making connections and stuff, and it seems like a really positive confessional for her, and I'd be feeling a lot better about Genevieve's chances as the winner if at the end of the confessional she doesn't say, when is the other shoe gonna drop? And it kind of seems like the other shoe is this weird conversation with Aubrey, which I'll get into in a second, but it kind of seems like the other shoe might be Aubrey, and Aubrey is the thing that ends up taking Genevieve out. But in this initial conversation with Genevieve and Aubrey, I'm sure we didn't see some of it, but I am fully on Genevieve's side. Like, Genevieve's like, yeah, I see you as kind of a dangerous player, but, you know, dangerous players working together can be dangerous together. And Aubrey responds with, I'm just trying to suss out what kind of game you're actually trying to play. First of all, I think saying sus here is weird. It kind of takes the human element out of the conversation and makes it kind of seem like her main goal of talking to her is getting information. And also, the game, like the quote game she's trying to play is with you, Aubrey. Like, what do you mean? I think her saying what kind of game you actually are trying to play is weird too, because it implies that she's kind of lying, you know, like actually, like, well, I get that, but like, what are you actually trying to do? It's like, well, I just told you I want to work with you. Aubrey, in confessional, refers to some unspoken tension between them, and I think it's almost exclusively on Aubrey's side. I think she is threatened and intimidated by Genevieve because of how powerful she was in 47, and I think she just was going to go after Genevieve no matter what Genevieve said to her at the beginning of the game, you know? I do like Aubrey a lot, though. Back on Exile, we see Ozzy exercise his Oscar skills and get an extra vote. It's alright. Vaatu camp. I found it funny that Q felt the need to specify that he didn't lose his vote, he sold it. Very Q moment. This episode was just so good for Christian, because in the next scene back at Sela, Christian starts fire with 2 pairs of glasses. This was the next moment that I cried at, when he starts talking about how his baby boy was born 6 weeks before coming out. He says, my son is my secret weapon. And what really got me was when he said, someday my son will see this. Oh my gosh, that one hit me like a truck. I love Christian so much. I really think this could be the season that he pulls it off. Also in this scene, Cirie says she likes Christian, which is awesome, because I love Cirie. Cirie, by the way, this is a good time to establish. Cirie is my favorite Survivor player of all time. If Cirie wins, I would be just as happy as if Christian wins, if not happier. If Cirie wins 50, I think the entire history of Survivor is a little bit reframed in a good way. That brings me to another thing that I thought was very interesting about 50 so far, that I've heard RHAP talk about too, is the fact that whatever is happening in 50 retroactively makes old seasons better. So I believe already, 2 episodes in, South Pacific is rising through the ranks, because now every interaction between Coach and Ozzy means so much more knowing that 50's coming in 10 whatever years. We have Cirie saying that Jenna is from the first season, so she thinks that she's the queen. I do think there was a little bit of this going in with Jenna, because I feel like a couple people preseason mentioned it. Like, Jenna felt like there should be a little bit of reverence for her because she's from season 1. Jenna just came in too strong altogether, I think. She was too eager to play. I also noticed in the preseason, Jenna was doing a lot of like, this person is like this, so I'm going to treat them like this, and I'm going to get this result. And that's just not how humans work in Survivor. Survivor is very much a day-by-day, hour-by-hour basis. And coming in and being worried about Cirie's story on day 1 just completely sunk her from the second she got there. This is the scene also where Ozzy basically dedicates his entire game to Cirie, saying like, she's my ride or die, like she really is. I think that is the best move Ozzy could possibly make. Given the configuration he's been given on 50, I think latching to Cirie is the best thing that he can do. Over at the Vaatu camp, Colby is finally won over by Rizzo, at least partially, he says. Colby reminds Rizzo of his dad. He cries to Colby a little bit. It's a cute scene. This scene's even more interesting to me, considering the scene about laziness we get next episode, but we'll get there when we get there. Also, just calling it now, Rizzo's a losing finalist. He's getting positive and negative content and secondhand visibility. I just see it now. Back over at Kahlo, Jonathan's talking about how he needs to not play the same game and how he is, Jonathan 2.0. I don't think he's winning, but I think he's going to be here for a while because he's Jonathan. What tribe's going to vote off Jonathan in the pre-merge, right? I also noticed when he said it's going to be Jonathan 2.0, I promise, there was a little snake sound effect. So I could very well see Jonathan being one of the villains of the season that are taken out along the way. Tiffany, Dee, and Camilla link up and form an alliance. I think that's a really fun alliance. So far, it hasn't gotten a lot of screen time, so I'm not really sure how big of a part it's going to play in the season, but very fun alliance. This confessional from Camilla stood out to me a lot, where she said, I had a whole season of honor and integrity in 48, and I'm so sick of it. I'll get back to it later with the whole Rick and Joe thing, but the way that they're portraying honor and integrity this season is very interesting to me. We get a good amount of negative content for Chrissy here. She's just kind of shown to be bumbling around a little bit, and she was like brushing her teeth with that giant stalk. It looked silly. Basically, what's happening to Chrissy is what I was worried would happen to Rick, which is essentially a good or like semi-good player made to look like a dodo because they don't do well. They don't do well in the season. Don't really got much to say about the immunity challenge except Kyle getting hurt. Kyle should have just taken the help up. You can even hear somebody, I think it's Rizzo, ask if he needs help before he jumps, but he just tries the jump anyway, and you can't fault him that much because Q makes the jump at the beginning, and he was expecting to get help at the top. Also, I met Kyle during a Bryson Wendell viewing party for Survivor 48. He's a really great guy. Made it even more disappointing. So Sela loses the immunity challenge. We go back to the camp with them. Christian gives some kind of pep talk, and I think this is the first moment where we really start to see the difference between Joe and the other people on this tribe. Christian gives this pep talk about how we're doing the main things right. We just made one little mistake about the monkey's fist, and we'll be if we fix those things, we'll be good to go in the future. And then Joe chimes in with, and guess what else we gotta do? We gotta win the next one. Thank you, Joe. Thank you. I didn't realize we had to win the next challenge, by the way. Like, gosh. That's really all you had to say about that, Joe? Come on. Sorry. 48 pissed me off. What I was talking about earlier about what separates good Survivor players from bad ones and the ability to override your initial instincts and emotions on things is on display right here with Cirie being devastated about losing the challenge in confessional, but then at camp she's still like got her game face on. She's like, I'm really sorry guys, like she's like trying to move forward with it, but in confessional you can tell she's really hurt by the fact that like this is essentially a redo of Panama episode 1 where she almost goes home because she's weak in the challenge, but she's essentially able to separate how she's feeling about the challenge with what needs to get done to keep her in the game. And that's what makes her my favorite player of all time. Jenna basically goes around pushing the narrative that Cirie should go home because she blew the challenge. I think this is a very old school way of looking at the game, and I think that she's just not thinking about the group that she's with. The people she's talking to about this are like Christian, Emily, Rick Devens. Suri, I mean not Suri because she wants to vote for her, but like Suri's on this tribe, these people are not going to want one challenge flub to dictate somebody going home, because that could just as easily happen to them in a future challenge, or that could have been them throwing that monkey fist. This is the part of the episode when it started becoming pretty obvious that Jenna was going to be the boot, but don't get me wrong, I was still extremely worried that Suri would be the first boot. Jenna straight up says to Ozzy, I think you're going to try to protect Suri, which, what's the point of saying that? And then she says to him, this is why my gut tells me I can't trust you when it comes to Suri. I noticed throughout the episode, she makes a lot of I statements. She said, I think you're going to try to protect Suri. My gut tells me I can't trust you when it comes to Suri. Like, she isn't having a conversation with these people as much as she's just, like, throwing her game onto them and then expecting them to just accept it with open arms. We get more people saying Jenna's intense. This is when Joe says, oh God. At the end of the day, if you don't lose challenges, you don't go home. Like, literally day one, level one Survivor thinking. How is he on 50? I take that back. Joe has added a lot to 50 because of the contrast of how he plays compared to a good Survivor player. I do believe that Ozzy defends Suri a little bit too hard. He comes out the gate pretty strong of like, no, it can't be Suri. And that rightfully pings a couple people's radars. This is another reason I think Emily might not be the winner of the season. Emily has a confessional saying that she wants to keep Jenna because her and Suri are going at it, and that it like takes attention off of them, and then she doesn't get her way at the end of the episode. And I think that is a big indicator that she is not going to have the power in this alliance going forward. Then we get to the very first tribal council of season 50. I like that Jenna described what the first tribal council was like. Joe said that Kyle and Camilla gave him a wedgie on national television, which is pretty cool, which is pretty interesting because of the way he talks about it next episode. Another big thing I noticed, Jeff keeps last naming Christian, except he always says Hubicki. Isn't it Hugh Bicky? I've always heard Hugh Bicky, but Jeff this whole season has said Hubicki, so I don't know. But then we get to the start of the reading of the votes. My heart was in my ass, let me tell you. I just went through Rob Cesternino on the Traitors. I could not handle Suri being the first boot of Survivor 50. By the time the votes were actually being read, I was pretty convinced that Suri was fine, but I was not fully sure until I saw that second Jenna come out of the urn. Jenna goes home. Sad to see her first boot, but it much better than any of the other people on this tribe, so except maybe Savannah. Or Joe. This is a weird 3-hour premiere, so we go back to Vatu camp after this, and Genevieve finds the Billie Eilish Boomerang Idol. What a name. 80% of fans voted yes to idols. I think this is a pretty cool idea for an idol. It incentivizes people to either work with the person they give the idol to later down the line in a tribe swap situation, or work with them and convince them to get voted out with the idol in their pocket so they get it back. So there's a lot of interesting ways this could go. I think it's pretty unlikely that it's going to turn out the way that the producers want it to the first time they have the baby, but we'll see. Genevieve decides to send her idol to Ozzy because he went home before with an idol in his pocket. I guess that's sound logic. RHAP was talking about people that pregame actually have an advantage with this idol because they have more of an idea of who would be good to send it to as like somebody to work with, whereas Genevieve didn't really have much pre-gaming stuff as far as we know, and she just kind of threw it to somebody who she doesn't have a connection with and who she thinks might go home with it, which is a strategy. I think it might be a little bit better to have this be only playable until Final 6 instead of Final 5. Because at Final 6, it's the last time you can play this idol, in my scenario, but it's not the last time you can play an idol. So I feel like you might be able to convince somebody to take home their idol as a souvenir or something for their sister, for their kid, for whatever, and then just like blindside them so you have the idol next time. But if it's at 5, nobody's ever gonna not play an idol at 5. Except like Eric and his necklace. That's why Eric and the necklace, I can't say anything is fully impossible because Eric gave up individual immunity to Natalie. So unless is Final 4 fire making gone and idols can be played at 4 now? Oh, God, I hope not. God, I hope not. Unless it's a Final 2, which it won't be. Then we get our first journey of the season with Mike, Colby, and Savannah. I was very impressed by Colby's question when they get there. He said, how did Coach represent his win coming back? That's a fantastic question. That gets a ton of information. It gets like exactly how Coach said it. Like that was a top tier question, Colby. And then I thought it was kind of dumb that Mike just goes home. Goodbye, Michael. And then we get the whole Jenga tower thing. Colby loses his vote. Savannah gets a block of vote. Savannah says the dynamic advantages were the ones that the fans voted for. What the hell did any of those choices even mean? We don't know. The production might not even know, but dynamic won, so that's all that matters. And then we get the setup for next episode. We go back to Mike telling Coach about his whole interaction with Ozzy, and Coach is super upset about this. Mike says that Coach took it harder than he thought. Coach really is like, you can see him getting South Pacific flashbacks like in the moment. It's kind of wild. This next thing is something I really want to get your opinion on. Savannah comes back, gets off the boat. The guy hands her a parchment. She's like, oh my gosh, there is a twist. She opens it, she gets a block of vote. That's pretty neat. Savannah then decides to not tell her tribe. And that's a horrible lie. In the 10th season of the new era, you really think there'd be a journey where somebody just plays to keep their vote? But I think that the way production structured the challenge, where not even Savannah knew that she was getting something until the very end, and the fact that both Mike and Colby thought that she didn't get something, led her to be way more likely to tell this awful lie to her tribe. And immediately Rick's like, she definitely has something, y'all. Like, what do you mean? And then I think that's a really big reason why she goes home next time. Because I think if she instead does what Ozzy does and goes to like Rick or Christian, is like, listen, I don't really know how to play this block of vote well. I need your guys' help. Like, let's work together, and I will give you guys this if you help me play it right. And I think that is how Joe goes home instead of her, or maybe someone else like Ozzy. I think that was a big misstep for Savannah. And also, she tells them, and then immediately goes sits on the beach after. Like, what's that about? And then the final scene of the episode we get is Kyle being medically evacuated. Not much to say here. I feel bad for Kyle. I learned a lot about Achilles tendons. Kyle does say something interesting as he's leaving, which is that somebody from the Vaatu camp needs to win it. He says it here, and then in the next episode, they revisit Q talking about it. I wouldn't have given it a ton of credibility if they didn't revisit it immediately in the next episode. That makes me think there could be something there with that. I just don't know who I see from Vaatu winning. So far, I think Q and Aubrey and maybe Colby are like the only ones that are making a big mark on the season so far. Besides Rizzo, but he's not doing it in a fully positive way. And that is the end of episode 1. It was a fantastic 3 hours of television. Episode 2, I think, might be even better, so let's just get right into episode 2. We open episode 2 at the Vaatu camp. They say goodbye to Kyle. They revisit them saying they want to win it. Rizzo is talked about by Q and I think Colby about how he's replacing Kyle in the Alliance. They interestingly show Rizzo as being self-aware that he came on too strong out the gate. And then he says, I think I have a long stay in this game. Again, in episode 1, he said he wants to be known as one of the greatest players to play the game. This time he says, I think I'll have a long stay in the game. Neither time did he say anything about winning. And I think that's big. Well, it's weird because they show him being self-aware that he came on too strong here. Then later, Q talks about how lazy everyone is. So I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to get from that. Over at Sela, Christian shits his pants. I thought it was funny when he said, I'll let you know when I know, to Joe. And of course, Christian drops the line, gastrointestinal distress, which is, of course, a callback to Stephen Fishbach from Survivor 31 Cambodia, when he also undergoes severe gastrointestinal distress. Christian does not say severe. This is incredible secondhand visibility for Christian. It shows him being very funny, very likable, very human. That is very important for a winner. Also, winners in the new era. I feel so strongly about this, I'm going to put a spoiler warning, because I think it might be so accurate that it's a spoiler. Winners in the new era get a funny, out of left field character scene in the pre-merge, almost every single time. We had Marianne with the whole, here's Marianne. We had Gabler putting palm fronds on people. We had Jam Jam pooping in the ocean and the whole idol thing with Josh. We had Dee's big toe. We had Kenzie is a mermaid dragon. We have Rachel go through her whole thing with Andy, right? We have 48. We got Kyle and his wart and Savannah. We have she had something, but I forget what it was. It was some kind of character moment. Oh, it was Jawan taking her things, and she was reacting to that strongly. And I think, unfortunately for Christian, this is it for him. He is shitting himself on national television. Keep an eye on that, though. We get to the reward challenge, and then we get this amazing part of the episode where they're talking about Kyle getting medevaced, and then Jeff throws it to Ozzy about how hard the opening challenge was, and he talks about throwing out his back, and then Jeff goes over to Coach, and Coach is like, yeah, that challenge was really hard, but I just want to make sure that my honor and integrity is kept intact. Oh my gosh, it was so good. It was so good. It was just like an immediate switch, and he says, this is the same old Coach, and yup. And it's interesting, Jeff lists reasons as to losing the game, and he lists reputation tarnished as a reason for losing. And I could see that taking down either Coach or Ozzy, or Coach and Ozzy. I don't know if I see either of them making the final three right now. And also, they love showing bad dives. Rick Devens got it this episode at the end, where he just kind of leaps and then just kind of like falls forward but horizontal. It's pretty funny. I really got to learn how to dive before I ever play Survivor. Back at the Vatu camp, they are drinking sour coconuts. I don't think I can recommend that. They looked pretty gross. This is the part where Aubrey talks about Ko-Rong Day 1, and this moment gave me hope that, okay, maybe she's showing some potential for the future, because if her being anxious and standoffish with Genevieve is portrayed in the same way that it's like a callback to her first season, I could see the edit allowing her to overcome this, you know? Because it's kind of like a parallel in the edit. If next episode she continues to be paranoid and stuff, I think her chances of doing well are kaput. But now that she has the Billie Eilish boomerang idol, I think she has a great shot at making it far with Christian, Rick, and Emily. Genevieve, being the observational queen that she is, knows that the other tribes probably have Billie Eilish boomerang idols, and that somebody on her tribe might have an idol because of it. I cannot stress enough, the timing of this was crazy. This moment also makes me think that the universe wants Aubrey to do well this season, because Aubrey got so lucky that they went through her bag when they did. If they went through her bag one day later, I think Aubrey's dead in the water for the rest of the season. But because they went through it before she got it, now they think she has nothing. She actually does have something. Like, they really think she has nothing because they went through her bag. I think the stars have aligned for Aubrey to do well this season. Also, did you see the heist that those guys pulled off? Like, everybody had their role. You can tell these are pros. This season is going to be so good. Over on Kahlo, Jonathan says he's going to switch up his game, and he talks about how much he enjoys fishing. Wow. Coach freezes up in the water. It's kind of hilarious. I feel bad for him a little bit. I will say, there is nobody, possibly in the world, that I would rather be stuck in the water with than Jonathan Young. Like, that, I would feel so safe. I'd just be like, carry me home. Just carry me back. And he'd just do it. Mike saying that Coach was like a bug in a pool was hilarious. I laughed so hard. D talks some shit on Chrissy. I feel pretty bad for Chrissy. Nothing that she says in the episode seems like that egregious, but she's just really getting the complete dodo edit. But the swap is about to happen, so I do have a little bit of hope that Chrissy at least won't just be a full dodo the whole season. Back over at Sela, Rick says that he has a core alliance of Emily and Christian, and he says in confessional that he doesn't like Joe. He says he has to work around his principles. I think we can all agree that Rick did not do a very good job of talking to Joe at the well after he asked him about Savannah. And Rick says, all of us are coming out here to play Unleashed. It's interesting, there's a confessional immediately after that. Christian is seen talking with Rick and I think Sari, maybe Emily, about how Joe is not going to violate his code and how we have to play the game in a way that Joe is going to be okay with for now. And that's essentially what Rick is really upset about, is that he doesn't want to do that. He wants to play Unleashed. So it's a very interesting difference of the way that people look at the game. And then one of my favorite moments so far in the season, Christian finds the Billie Eilish boomerang idol as he's doing a confessional. It's just sitting in a tree. Oh, it's so good. He decides to give it to Aubrey, which I called during the episode, by the way. I was like, oh my god, he's going to give it to Aubrey. It's going to happen. This is when we get the scene at Vaatu camp about how Q thinks everyone's lazy. This is exactly what I mean when I say Rizzo's getting a losing finalist edit. Q, quote, says, I like Rizzo, but Rizzo's lazy. Literally, both positive and negative secondhand visibility in the same sentence. I thought it was funny when Rizzo was like, I gotta go disinfect this. This is another scene that illustrates the different styles of playing for this season for different people. Q says, quote, there's 3 to 4 people max in this tribe of 7 that's pulling their weight. The way I heard that sounds like if there's only 3 of 7, you better watch what you say because you're in the minority. But this is exactly what I was talking about earlier with how the players of each season determine what's okay with that season. I was super excited when Camilla said the thing about how she had a whole season of honor and integrity and she's sick of it, because I was really not okay with how positively they portrayed the honor and integrity stuff in 48, because that is how the people of that season played it. All of the good I don't want to say that. All of the people that were going to play the game backstabby went out in the pre-merge. There was Kevin, Justin, Thomas, Bianca, Say. They were all going to play the game not in an honor and integrity way, but it just happened that the people that saw the game that way made it further. So they did make up the ethos and what is okay for that season. So when Camilla started shitting on it, I was like, yeah, go Camilla. But this scene with Q made me pause and realize, like, this is how this season is going, and I'm happy about it. But it could have just as easily been going the other way with a majority of Kyle, Q, Colby, and Stephanie, and a 5th running this tribe. And it could be a completely different season, you know? So the history is written by the victors, I'll say that. Not much happens at the immunity challenge except Sela loses again. Back at the Sela camp. This is a good episode for Cirie. This is the episode I think gives me reason to believe that Cirie is the winner. I thought it was weird that Emily threw out Ozzy's name to Cirie. She must not realize how close Cirie and Ozzy are, which is interesting to me. Cirie goes to bat for Ozzy to make sure he's not the target. She directly cites Savannah's advantage as a reason to get her out, by the way, because it's an unknown. And then Cirie has this great line of, she's talking about how, like, I'll lead you to think this, and you come up with your decision that may be my decision. And it's just such a good line because that's always how Cirie has played. And that's what makes me think that Cirie might be the winner, because we got all this stuff that's going on after this. Like, all these plays with Emily and Christian and Rick and Joe and all this stuff going on in Savannah. All of that is overshadowed by this one line of Cirie being like, you come up with your decision that might be my decision. It's like, yeah, all these people are doing this stuff, but oh wait, if you remember, this is actually what Cirie wanted all along. So I think we're getting really good setup for a potential Cirie win. And I am just really hoping that happens, because this season's already amazing for me, and I would love if it was my favorite season of all time. This was also a moment that was very big for Ozzy's game. He, in Confessional, recognizes, compared to Cirie, he's not that great at strategy, which, one, I don't think Ozzy from Micronesia is ever recognizing or acknowledging that. So I think that's great for Ozzy from a maturity standpoint, and recognizing that he's not as good of a strategist as Cirie, and that he needs to latch on to Cirie and, like, needs her to do well is a really good thing for him to note, because he gives his extra vote to Cirie. For almost anybody that's ever played Survivor, I think that this might be one step too far. I think you can tell Cirie about the vote and say that you're going to play it with her to, like, build trust. I think it's one step too far for most people to give her the vote. However, because this is Ozzy we're talking about, and because he does not have those strategic chops, and we know that because we've seen him so many times, especially Game Changers. So him giving the extra vote to Cirie, I think, is perfect, because it fully solidifies to Cirie that he is with her, and she needs to know that. She needs to know that there's no history from Micronesia that he wants to get back at her for, you know? Like, she needs that, and him giving that to her, I think, allows them to be a really strong duo moving forward. And also, it's just an extra vote. It's not that strong. It's not that important. And another thing, this is Cirie's first advantage ever. She almost had Sarah's vote steal, but it was non-transferable. Then we get into the main conflict of the episode, which is Joe versus Rick. According to Savannah, this was a lot more intense off camera, this fight. We'll probably get more about that in the exit interviews. I don't listen to the exit interviews. I just hear what Rob Has a Podcast says about them because I'm too nervous about inferring things from the way that people talk about other people. Basically, we see Rick is totally done with Joe. I do think it was weird that Rick didn't tell Joe about the alliance with Joe, Savannah, Ozzy, Rick. Rob Sesternino had a really good point that Rick probably already knew that Savannah was a target, so he didn't want to tell Joe about this four-person alliance because he knew he wasn't going to stick with it. He knew he was with Christian and Emily and Cirie. So him telling Joe about this four-person alliance and then him looking like the only one that breaks it out of the four would be a bad look for Rick. That's where RHAP landed with it, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Christian has a confessional saying Joe is getting in the way of everything. He says he might vote Rick tonight, and I cannot let that happen. Again, solidifying how close Christian and Rick are. I think they're going to be a very, very strong duo this season. Christian then goes on to say his role is a therapy carousel. The name of the episode, and such a great line. And then we have the fantastic moment of Christian comforting Joe in the hammock, and he's talking to him through the netting. RHAP has a really, really good video going through this entire sequence with Joe and Rick and how their different styles of play clash and everything. Very interesting. I definitely recommend checking it out. I really, really wanted Joe to go home this episode. In hindsight, I'm kind of glad he didn't because I think Savannah going home now unexpectedly is better than her going home expectedly later because we know she's not winning. She's season 49 winner. She's not winning 50. I really wanted Joe to go because I was super excited for 48 to just get dunked on. And that's kind of how I saw the episode, of just everybody being like, Joe is just ruining everything. He's playing with honor and integrity. It's not how Survivor should be played. And I have always agreed with that. But watching RHAP's video about this whole sequence with Joe and Rick gave me more appreciation for the other style of gameplay, and that it's not necessarily a wrong way of playing, it's just a different way of playing. And if there were only people that played the way I want people to play, then there would be very little intrigue in Survivor because everybody would be playing the optimal move. And emotions are really what makes Survivor interesting and what keeps characters compelling. So people having these strong internal beliefs about things, like Coach and Ozzy and Q and Joe, they are what drive the character moments forward. So I have to give credit to Joe for that kind of stuff. And before Tribal, we get this game advancing move of Christian telling Rick about the Billie Eilish Boomerang idol, and Rick suggests hiding a fake at Tribal. Oh my goodness. This could pay off in so many ways. I'm very excited to see what happens with this. I think, again, it was portrayed positively as a good move, and they really showed where it was at the end of the episode. So I really think that we are seeing this pay off in some way, in some meaningful way. Another example of how old seasons are made better by this season and how old seasons have impacted this season is that this move with Rick and Christian hiding the fake idol at Tribal is only possible because of Adam Klein's failed idol attempt in Survivor 40 when he tried to play the symbol on Jeff's podium as an idol. So Adam doing that on 40, which, by the way, he only did because it was done on Survivor New Zealand before that, I believe, where somebody successfully did find an idol at Tribal Council. So Adam doing this at all makes it possible that somebody could think about the idea of an idol being hidden at Tribal and it being credible. Because that seems like something Survivor might do. Is like, oh, well, you thought it was a real idol that time? No. But this time in season 50, there is an idol hidden at Tribal Council. And when else to do it but a landmark season like 50? So I think this is a really, really good lie. I rewatched this episode to take notes on it, and listening to Savannah's speech about being vulnerable hits a little different on a rewatch when you know that she's going home. It's kind of a little sad and almost a little disturbing because she's talking about how like she wasn't able to open up for fear of rejection and how she's learned by the end of her season that she needs to be vulnerable with people. and like everybody around her is smiling, and like Suri like squeezes her shoulder at one point, and it's like, oh, that wasn't empathy. I mean, it was empathy, but that wasn't empathy for how she's feeling. That's empathy because we know we're about to send her home. Oh, that's brutal. And then we get this fantastic moment after tribal council when Christian falls. I thought it was really cool that he got up really quickly and like scooted past Rick quickly, and then he like really quickly slowed down his walk to make it look natural, and then he just falls, fully falls. And the best part of the whole scene is Ozzy helps him up, and Christian goes, "No, I meant to do that." And it's funny because he did mean to do that. Oh my god, it's so good. It's just so amazing. And then Rick shoots a Jim Halpert look to the camera before the end of Tribal. They really show where the idol is specifically, like many times, like 3 or 4 times. I really think this is going to pay off in some amazing way going forward, and I just cannot wait to see. So far, Suri and Christian remain my winner picks. I'm very interested to see how the rest of the season goes. Thank you all so much for listening to my thoughts about Survivor 50 episodes 1 and 2. I am Nathan, the Survivor Buff. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe and share for more Survivor content in the future. Bye-bye.